Et voila! Bonjour friends, bonjour, Cynthia here. And today is Saturday. Happy New Year to all of you. Welcome to the first edition of The Crowned Voice. I am the Queen of Pageant Talk, and today we are going to talk about the recently held Mrs. World 2025. I know a lot of you have been waiting for my thoughts, for my commentary, and here we are. It took me a couple of days. The events were held on Wednesday and Thursday. Today is Saturday, so pardon me. However, I am still recovering from my fall in Massachusetts, in Aruba. So nevertheless, here I am. So call a friend, tell a friend. We are going to be talking about Mrs. World 2025 on The Crowned Voice, where we celebrate integrity, transparency, and excellence in beauty pageants. So, my friends, if you are a woman who competes in beauty pageants, you want to watch this. Also, I encourage you to share this with a friend, a sash sister who also competes in beauty pageants. And if you have never competed in beauty pageants, I still encourage you to watch this because maybe you might consider competing. It's a wonderful sport. I am a former beauty queen, formerly Mrs. Framingham, formerly Mrs. Massachusetts, and Mrs. New England. So it is a sport that I love because it encourages personal development. Okay, so here we are. Let's talk about Mrs. World. If you watched, please let me know in the comments. As I am going over my commentary, feel free to share your thoughts, your suggestions, and your questions in the comments, and I will definitely respond. So, first, let's say Mrs. World was just held in Las Vegas on I believe Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday and Thursday. It was the 29th and 30th, and the first Black Mrs. World was crowned. She is the first Black Mrs. World in 40 years. In 40 years of the pageant. Now, this is the first pageant that began recognizing married women. They also own Mrs. America, but 40 years ago, the owners decided to have a competition for married women as well, accomplished married women who were very charitable. So in 40 years, in the history of Mrs. World, this is the first time a Black woman was crowned and won the competition. And she is absolutely beautiful. She is eloquent. She is articulate. I believe she's an attorney. She is from South Africa. And we celebrate her win. We are so happy. Her wardrobe was impeccable. She had poise, she had grace, and you guys know I love poise and grace. And she also, what really stood out to me about Mrs. South Africa is she wore her natural hair. Yes, she wore, as a Black woman, she wore the hair that grew out of her head, her natural hair. And that really struck me because in pageantry, when I started, I believe 4 years ago, you did not see, if any, Black women wearing their natural hair. And I understood they were fitting into the standards of the beauty pageant world. Most of them wore wigs or they wore straight hairstyles. But I was one of the few who competed with no hair. You guys know I had a signature bald look. And I was even told at one time, I was talking to someone about my chances of winning. And she said, you know, the pageant you're competing in, they're not ready for a Black woman with long hair. So I know they're not going to be ready for a Black woman with no hair. And that was so funny to me, but I still competed. I had another woman reach out to me. She wanted to wear her own hair as a Black woman, and it was very short. And I encouraged her, and she did compete with a very short afro. and she won that competition. So seeing Mrs. South Africa win Mrs. World wearing the hair that grew out of her head, meaning no extensions, no wigs, nothing at all, and she still won, that made me very, very happy. And it encourages me even more that I'm now growing my own hair back. You guys know I was bald for a very long time, 10 years, by choice because I loved the look. But I began growing my hair, and like you can see right now, I'm wearing cornrows with beads. It's a tribal African hairstyle. And it encourages me to continue on my own journey as well. So that stood out to me. Congratulations to Mrs. South Africa for being Mrs. World. I hate to say the first black because I can't believe in 2025 we're still saying things like the first black, right? But it is a fact. And we have to question also, why did it really take Mrs. World organization 40 years? 40 years for a black woman to win? Really? I mean, how many are black? There weren't. If we look through the years, I'm quite sure there were many, many successful, accomplished, beautiful, gorgeous, elegant black women. And this is the first time in 40 years? So, my friends, tell me, how significant is it that Mrs. South Africa won while wearing her natural hair? And do you think pageantry is shifting towards more diverse beauty standards? Let me know in the comments. Is it really significant that it took 40 years for Mrs. World to recognize a black woman? And do you also think that this means that the pageant world is now shifting its beauty standards? They are no longer immediately going for the blonde-haired Barbie. Yes, I said it. Are they shifting? Are they becoming more diverse? And I must admit, too, I was pleased to see that the judging panel at Mrs. World, I will say, was very diverse. It was very, very diverse, and maybe that had something to do with it as well. So more diversity in the judging panel and a more diverse beauty standards. We have to realize that the blonde hair Barbie is not the standard of beauty in the world. It is not. There are beautiful Indian women, beautiful African women, beautiful Russian women. There are beautiful, what else? There are beautiful women from around the world. So again, we have to get away from that old standard of the blonde hair Barbie. So let's continue. Now, Mrs. World is supposed to be, if you see me looking away, I have notes, so I'm looking at my notes, and I encourage you to share with me your thoughts, your reactions, your comments in the comments, because I will read them and respond. Now, Mrs. World. Is Mrs. World truly an international pageant? What does that mean, international? Does it mean, it's a cute name, right? The word international, it has a nice ring to it. The word world also has a nice ring to it. But is the pageant truly international? One of the things that stood out to me was there was a Mrs. America and there was also a Mrs. American. What does that mean? Do we have two people representing America? Now, there's no hate to America. I love America. I'm an American citizen. I believe America is the greatest country. Now, with all respect to my heritage, the Bahamas, Haiti, and Africa, right now, I believe America is the greatest country in the world. I love it here. I love what it stands for. There are some issues, but I still wouldn't give it up for anywhere in the world. Why does America need two representatives? Why? Why do we need a Mrs. American and a Mrs. America? Number one. There was also a Mrs. Canada and there was a Mrs. Canadian. Why? Why are there two representatives for these two countries? Okay, so that stood out to me. And also, that brought a lot of confusion. There were also many contestants who were at large. The rules of nationality were very unclear. During the program, they said that the contestants must be born in the country, reside in the country, or their mother must be from the country they want to represent. However, there were many contestants who were at large. For those of you who are not familiar with the pageant world, what it means at large is, for instance, if I want to participate in Mrs. World or Mrs. International, I can be at large for Haiti because my mother was born in Haiti. So I can be Miss Haiti International or Miss Haiti World at large because I have ties to that country. Not necessarily born in the country or live in the country, but my parents are from that country. If you guys see me looking away, it's because hubby is here and he's looking at me. He's looking at me with that attorney eye. Okay, so that was noted. There were a lot of contestants who were at large. And for those of you who are not aware, there was a time Mrs. World was held in different countries around the world. When the owner co-founder, David Marmel, was alive, the country was hosted and presented in different countries like Japan, Indonesia, Africa, Russia, all around the world, but that has changed, and we'll talk about that some more. So here's a question. Do you think a pageant called Mrs. World should be hosted in different countries? And do you think being hosted in different countries brings back its global appeal? Because for the past few years, Mrs. World has been held in Las Vegas. It's been held in Vegas. I mean, when the first time I saw it, I thought it was nice. It was cute. Las Vegas with, at the Elvis Suite. And I'm not going to say anything about Elvis and the Elvis Suite because you all know my husband is an Elvis fan. So I'm not going to go there. But there has to be more to Mrs. World than being, frolicking in the Elvis Suite and promoting Westgate's Resort and Casino. It should be held in different countries around the world, and I believe that will give it a global appeal. And I'm saying all of this not only because I am a former beauty pageant queen, but I also am a former producer. For those of you who know me, you know in Miami, I was known as Reine Cynthia, and I owned a Reine Entertainment. It was a company that produced major glamorous events at the most prestigious venues in Miami, like the Miami Arena, which is now the American Airlines Arena, and also the James L. Knight Center. So I'm very familiar with production. I'm very familiar with hosting and presenting a major event in a city and working with governmental officials to do so. So even if the event was being held in Vegas, there's so much more that could have been done for all the other women who were coming from other countries. They could have been greeted by the local mayor or maybe a county commissioner. The tourist development department of Vegas could have been involved. But, I'm not going to give away a lot of production secrets here. But there could have been so much more that could have been done to welcome all of these women who flew in from other places. So, again, do you think that Mrs. World being held in different countries will give the pageant a more global appeal? So, let's continue. The prize package. Wait, someone said something about languages. Oh, yeah, that was something else, too. I believe that the translate. You know what I think should have also been done? I'm not sure if they had this at Mrs. World, but when you have people coming from other countries, participating in a beauty pageant like Mrs. World or Mrs. International, there has to be someone in charge of protocol. There must be a protocol director or someone in charge to accommodate the women who don't speak English, who aren't familiar with the local culture. And I don't believe there was anything like that. I believe it was Mrs. Singapore or Mrs. Thailand when she was answering her on-stage question. It looks like that was the time the pageant was looking for a translator. Like, are you serious? There is no translator who was already working with the women who did not speak English to make them more comfortable and familiar with what was going on. I think that is very, very important. So, moving on, let's talk about the prize package. What are these married women in Mrs. World competing for? They invest so much money, so much time, so much resources into this pageant. What is the prize package? What is the prize? I remember as a little girl growing up watching the pageants on TV. The women were winning cash, $25,000. They were winning scholarships. Some of the prize packages included brand new cars. What is the prize package? We have no idea. No one knows. It's like a big secret and everyone's afraid to talk about it. Does the winner get a prize? Does the the runner-up get a prize? No one knows. No one knows. It's hush-hush and people are afraid to talk about it. How hard is it to get sponsors? Again, being a producer, you can get sponsors to give prizes. How hard it is to get an automobile for the winner of Mrs. World. How hard is it to get a house or an apartment for 1 year for Mrs. World? How hard is it? See, now if the organizers are watching this, or people who own beauty pageants watch this, I'm giving you a lot of nuggets here. How hard is it for a jewelry store to sponsor the pageant and give the winner diamonds, give the winner a car, apartments, a wardrobe? Someone is not doing the work here. Someone is not doing the work. If you're collecting money from these women, you should have someone in charge of marketing and sponsorship to make sure that these women receive something of value. Okay? And of course, the company or the organization or the business who is sponsoring, they get publicity. When I was doing my events, American Airlines sponsored me. Citibank sponsored me. Okay, I had several sponsors: Dom Perignon, Hennessy, Shefflin and Somerset. See, now they're coming to mind. Shefflin and Somerset, the company that owns Dom Perignon, Hennessy, Johnny Walker, they sponsored my event. American Airlines, ALM Airlines, Citibank, Delta, they all sponsored, the Hyatt, they all sponsored my event because I gave them value. There is no reason why a pageant like Mrs. World does not have sponsorship or support from the local government. That just means someone is not doing the work. That's all it means. And I was told at this year's event that Mrs. World was selling souvenirs to the contestants. Unbelievable. They were selling jogging suits and hats. I was told the hats were $25. They were selling souvenirs to the women. What is going on? Not only do they have to pay an entry fee and pay for their gowns, their flights, their hotel and everything, but at the pageant, instead of giving them a swag bag that is valuable, you're selling jogging suits and hats. Unbelievable. So, my question, should Mrs. World have a more substantial, a more transparent, a more valuable prize package? And what should the winner receive for her dedication? Let me know in the comments what you believe Mrs. World should receive as a prize package. For those of you just joining, my name is Reine Cynthia. I am the Queen of Pageant Talk, and today we are covering the recently held Mrs. World. So now let's talk about the contestants. I noted that there was a low number of contestants. There were only 40 women this year. There was only 40 women this year. It's usually 60, 70 women. But this year, there were only 40 women. That is the lowest number of contestants in recent years. Does this reflect a decline in interest or accessibility? I don't believe it's a decline in accessibility because it looks like anyone can participate, even if you do not meet the rules of eligibility. Right? There were so many at-large contestants. So I think it's perhaps it is lower interest from the contestants. I don't know. What do you think? Why were there only 40 this year when it's usually more, much more? So let's continue. Should Mrs. World work on expanding its reach to bring in more contestants? And what would make the competition more appealing? Tell me in the comments what you believe would make this competition more appealing for an accomplished married woman who is also charitable. Why would she invest all of this money and travel from her country to participate in Mrs. World? If you're just signed in, welcome, come on in. We are talking about Mrs. World that was recently held in Las Vegas. I am going to share this live just in case you missed it, and you will be able to catch up on everything we talked about because we've been on for a while here. So now let's talk about the evening gown segment. I have so much to say, but I'm not going to talk about the contestants. Because I applaud their efforts. I understand it's a very competitive sport and there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I'm trying my best not to talk about the contestants, only the organization, okay? An organization that's been around for 40 years. But as far as the evening gown segment, which is one of the segments that I love, for those of you that has been following me, you can see that I love gowns. I love walking in gowns. And I believe an evening gown segment for married women should reflect sophistication. It should reflect poise, and it should reflect grace. I believe there were too many high splits. Why are married women, accomplished married women, who are also charitable, you just paraded in swimsuits? Why are you wearing a slit all the way up past your thigh? Why? This is the evening gown competition, ladies. This is the chance for you to put on a gorgeous, an opulent evening gown, and for you to display your elegance, your poise, your grace. Not to show up as if you're going to a prom or you're in Mrs. Universe. This is not Miss Universe. This is Mrs. World. Why are you parading in a split? I don't get it. I didn't understand it. And I believe also there was a lack of gracefulness. There was a lack of poise. I have a suggestion. I believe for evening gown, there are a lot of pageant coaches who teach, who help with interviews. I believe women, before you get on the stage to compete, hire a coach that teaches you how to walk. Hire a coach who teaches you how to carry your body. Hire a coach who teaches you how to embody and how to project grace and sophistication. Hire a coach, please. Because the way some of those women were walking, no. You have to become one with the gown. The gown should not be wearing you. You should become one with the gown and you should flow. Take a look at some of my videos. I'm not bragging. I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not sorry. But take a look at some of my videos. You should become one with the gown, not carrying the gown and the gown. No, it should flow. Okay? So I think stage presence, ladies, you should invest in stage presence, especially if you're a married woman. So, question, my friends, do you think high slits in evening gowns are appropriate for married women, or should they focus on grace and sophistication? Again, do you think high splits all the way to your thigh, is that appropriate for married women who are competing in beauty pageants, especially if they just paraded in swimsuits, or should they focus on grace, poise, and sophistication? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's continue to the 40th anniversary celebration. Now, this pageant was promoted as being the 40th anniversary of Mrs. World. Again, with my production and event planning background, I didn't see a celebration at all. This was supposed to be a milestone year. There was there was nothing. There was nothing. The former queens came back, right? All they did was dance and receive a single rose from the co-founder. And that's not a celebration. That's a gesture. Elaine, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. It may be Eileen, pardon me, who is the founder with her husband. He passed. She's still alive. She was only brought out briefly to pass out roses. Now, I believe this woman, who is a mother to beauty pageant queens all around the world, who has been doing this for more than 40 years, I believe she should have been celebrated. She should have been celebrated in a grand way, not just called out to the stage to pass out single roses to the former queens. There should have been more done, especially for her. So, question for you, for 40th anniversary, what would you have loved to see different? Visually, what would you think would be appropriate for a 40th anniversary? Again, this is pageantry. Pageantry means extravagance. It means opulence. It means pizzazz. Right? There was none of that. None at all. As a matter of fact, as far as production is concerned, the stage looked like a high school auditorium. And I'm not taking that back. It looked like a high school auditorium where they have talent shows. All there was a big screen in the back. My last event in 2023 at the James L. Knight Center, my stage over, do the math, 15, 20 years ago, looked better than that. And that was for a music awards. Oh, come on. You can't play with people's faces. This is 2025. That stage, the Mrs. World stage, looked like a high school auditorium. There was nothing. There was nothing. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Let's continue. I just can't get over it, because that's the first thing I see. When I go to an event, the first thing I see is production, because that's my heart. I love production. I love the way things are presented. The name Mrs. World, okay, and it looks like a talent show? No, there was no flair, no pizzazz, no elegance. There was a black stage with a backdrop with the logo. There were no major sponsors. A pageant of this level should have high-end sponsors contributing to the production value. Local government should be involved as well to contribute to the production value. The founder, as I was told, David Marmel, took this pageant to international locations like Russia, Japan, Vietnam, India, and the contestants experience other cultures, but now it's only held in America. And I don't even think that the people coming from other countries experienced the American culture when they were in Vegas. What did they experience? I have an eye for production. There's so much more that can be done. So, my question, do you think Mrs. World should have invested in better production to match its legacy? Should it return to being hosted in international locations? I will say this about production. As far as all the beauty pageants I competed in, I will say the only one I was impressed with was Mrs. International. Mrs. International. Why? I was so impressed with their stage. Well, compared to all the other stages in pageantry, I was impressed with Mrs. International. Number one, because they had a production company there, and it's a reputable production company. And I interviewed the production company as well because I was impressed. While I was competing, I took some time to talk to the production company as well at Mrs. International. Mrs. International's presentation is the only pageant that I have seen to date that looks good. The only one. Their stage, even the MCs, the two MCs that are on the side of the stage, the way they flow with each other, the way it looks visibly is excellent. So again, the only pageant to date that I have seen, that I participated in, that looks good is Mrs. International. Miss World, you get a 0. 0, 0, 0. The performance at Mrs. International was even good. The performer, the MCs, the hosts, the narrating, the stage visibly, the sound, the lights. To date, it's the best that we have so far. Mrs. World, 0. Now, let's talk about the opening number. Opening number. They have the women, again, we have married, accomplished, charitable women doing dance routines. These women aren't dancers. They're not dancers. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're businesswomen, they're homemakers. You know, they have charities. They're not dancing. Why do you have them dancing on a stage? And when you look at the dance routine, some of the women are out of sync. They're not flowing. It looks like a total mess. I believe that pageants, especially when it comes to married women, they should eliminate the dance routine. And if you're going to keep it for no more than 10 to 15 seconds. Let them do it, come in, do it, open up, and bam. That's it. But the more you let them dance up there, no, it reminds me of the college girl dancing in a bar. It doesn't look good. The women deserve prestige, not dancing. No. So, do you agree? Do you think that Mrs. World opening numbers should be limited or just eliminated? Not only Mrs. World. Do you believe pageants where married women compete, should they eliminate the dance routines or just make it shorter? Someone's saying the Mrs. World women gorgeous and grace to live. Feels like yep. Someone says the women are gorgeous. Someone says, Social Queen, thank you for your comment. She says the Mrs. World women are so gorgeous and graceful, but the stage and production feels like a high school stage. That's exactly what I said. It looks like a talent show. It's disrespectful, actually. If I had paid If I had made all the investment of my family, my resources, my money, and my time to travel and go to Vegas to be the Miss World, and then I show up and that's the stage, I would have felt disrespected. I would have felt disrespected. So, moving along. Why is Mrs. World no longer televised and only live streamed? So, as far as the live stream, this is the second time I watched it. I watched it in Aruba last year. It froze several times. This time we came back and I was able to watch it from here in Massachusetts. Again, there were technical issues. A world-class event as it is promoted, the most prestigious event for pageantry as it is promoted, should have a seamless broadcast. A seamless broadcast. So, do you think that Mrs. World should return to television? Should it return to television? Or, and if it returns to television, do you think it's going to bring back the prestige? I don't think it should return to television, not yet. What we just saw, no, that can't be on TV. No. That would be an embarrassment to the pageant industry. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, I know you guys are going to say that Cynthia is being hard, but this is the commentary of the Crown Voice. The Crown Voice, we are all about transparency, integrity, and excellence in beauty pageants. This is what we stand for. We are only telling the truth. We are the only media in the pageant community that has bold commentary and exclusive interviews where women get to share their truth. So, let's talk about the top 15. For years, there was a top 15. This year, it was top 17. At the last minute, it expanded to top 17. And I was told, allegedly, that 2 of the finalists in the top 17 were added by the staff. 2 of the top 17 were added by the staff. It was supposed to be top 15. At the last minute, the host even announced that it was last minute. It became top 17, and 2 of the 17 were added by the staff. Which 2 were added by the staff? We don't know. We don't know. Now, does this raise concerns about consistency in the selection process? Let me know in the comments. Should a top 15 be a strict rule? And should pageants have the flexibility to change the format as they see it? Let me know in the comments. So, honey's looking at me. Okay. I'm still reading comments here. Final thoughts. I'm done. Okay, friends, I'm done. There's no more. There is more, but I'm going to stop here. Okay? I'm going to stop here. Final thoughts. Where does Mrs. World go from here? Mrs. South Africa's win was historic and well-deserved. However, the overall pageant experience did not feel as prestigious as Mrs. World marketed itself. It did not at all. Does Mrs. World need a rebrand? Should it return to being a true international pageant? I want to hear from you. What do you think can be done to elevate, to bring back the glory of Mrs. World? What do you think needs to be done? Let me know in the comments. Let me see if there are any that I haven't addressed here yet. We are talking about Mrs. World 2025. Again, congratulations to Mrs. South Africa. I look forward to her year and wish her a successful year. And that's it for me, my friends. Today's program was brought to you by my book, Big Money Lies Exposed, How to Build Wealth Like a Grand Dame. Ladies, whether you are a career woman, a businesswoman, a homemaker, you should know how to use your money to build wealth and leave a legacy for your children and their children. Download my book today to become the CEO of your money and use your money in a better way. Also, today's program is brought to you by my Beauty Queen lipstick collection. If you haven't done so already, add it to your makeup kit. The lipsticks are suitable for all skin tones. They are highly pigmented and long lasting. That's it for today, my friends. That is the coverage of Mrs. World 2025. This is... Someone says Mrs. World should have a Legacy World brunch. Mrs. World needs to concentrate on that stage. That's what they need to do. Concentrate on that stage, first of all. All right, I'm done. Have a wonderful day. This is the first edition of The Crown Voice. We have more commentaries coming for you this year, in addition to our unique one-of-a-kind interviews. We're going to be having more commentaries about these pageants because they need to be held accountable. We want excellence, we want integrity, and we want transparency. I am Reine Cynthia, the Queen of Pageant Talk. Ciao.